Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about IELTS Speaking Part 1. Our topic is time management. Time management. Now, if you're planning to sit for your IELTS speaking test in the near future, then there is a chance that you may get some of these questions. In this lesson, we are going to look at the questions, and I'm also going to give you the sample answers. At the end of this lesson, I'm also going to give you some tips to ensure that you pass your IELTS speaking test with a very high band. Now, let us begin our lesson. Question 1. Are you ever late for anything? Are you ever late for anything? When the examiner asks you this question, they simply want to know, are you always punctual or sometimes you're late for things? Now you can answer this question by saying, well, I try to ensure that I'm always punctual for everything, but on some rare occasions, I do get late due to some unavoidable circumstances, such as if the train is cancelled unexpectedly. Well, I try to ensure that I'm always punctual for everything, but on some rare occasions, I do get late due to some unavoidable circumstances, such as if the train is cancelled unexpectedly. Now, in that answer, I did not simply say yes or no, because that would not be enough. Remember, the idea behind your IELTS speaking test is to convince the examiner that you have a good command of the English language to be able to express yourself in details. So once you have provided your answer, ensure that you give a detailed answer which has been elaborated. In my case, I confirmed that, well, I try to ensure that I'm always punctual for everything, but on some rare occasions, I do get late. And that is due to some unavoidable circumstances, such as if the train is cancelled unexpectedly. Now let's move on to question 2. What excuses do people give when they're late? What excuses do people give when they are late? In this question, the examiner wants you to identify some examples of reasons that people give when they are late. Now you can answer this question by saying, people give all sorts of excuses to cover up for their lateness. For instance, they lie that their car broke down, the train or the bus got cancelled, or that they had to rush one of their relatives to hospital. People give all sorts of excuses to cover up for their lateness. For instance, they lie that their car broke down, the train or bus got cancelled, or they had to rush one of their relatives to hospital. So in that answer, I have provided a number of excuses that people give when they are late. I pointed out that, first of all, they lie that their car broke down. Sometimes they will say the train or the bus got cancelled. And finally, some of them will say that they had to rush one of their relatives to hospital. Now you notice what I have done is that I have used linking words to join all my points together. I have used, for example, I have used for instance, okay? I have also used or, Okay, so you're expected to use a number of linking words to join your ideas together. And remember, for each question, provide two to three points or 2 to 3 ideas. Now let's move on to the next question. How do you organize your time? How do you organize your time? In this question, the examiner wants you to explain how you organize the time that you have in regards to the activities that you need to do. How do you ensure that you have enough time for all the activities that you need to do on any given day? Now you can answer that question by saying, to organize my time, I often make a to-do list and a timetable in which I have allocated everything that I need to do a time slot. I do also keep an agenda on my phone with a reminder and a timer for some activities such as studying. To organize my time, I often make a to-do list and a timetable in which I have allocated everything that I need to do a time slot. I do also keep an agenda on my phone with a reminder and a timer for some activities such as studying. So in that answer, I have provided the examiner with a number of ways through which I organize my time. First of all, I pointed out that I make a to-do list. A to-do list is a list which you write every day or weekly on all the things that you need to do that particular day. So I make a to-do list. Number 2, I have a timetable, and in that timetable I have allocated everything that I need to do a time slot. I do also keep an agenda on my phone with a reminder and a timer for some activities such as studying. Now let's look at question 4. What are the consequences of poor time management? What are the consequences of poor time management? So in that question, the examiner wants to know, what are the disadvantages? What are the negative points of poor time management? What are the negative points if you don't manage your time correctly? What are some of the negative things that are going to happen if you do not manage your time correctly? So you can answer this question by saying, poor time management can lead to lateness, doing mediocre work, confusion, and stress. Poor time management can lead to lateness, doing mediocre work, confusion, and stress. Now, in that answer, I have identified some negative consequences of poor time management. And in that answer, I have talked about lateness. So you could elaborate that answer further by saying, for example, poor time management can lead to lateness for appointments with your clients, for example, or to the doctors or to the dentist. And then doing mediocre work, for example, if you have a project that you have to do at work and you don't manage your time properly, then you're going to end up running out of time, and that will lead to you doing the work in a mediocre manner. Mediocre means that it is not adequate. You do not do a proper job. If someone said you have done a mediocre job, it means that your work is not good enough. Also, it can lead to confusion, because if you have very little time left to do a lot of different things, then at some point you don't know what to do first. So that can also lead to confusion. And then the last one is stress. And that will happen if you have too many things to do and you have very little time to do that, then you will get stressed. So in that answer, I have identified some consequences of poor time management, and for the sake of your IELTS speaking test, you could give some examples of, for example, poor time management can lead to lateness. You can give some examples. And then doing mediocre work, you could also give some examples, and confusion and stress. Now let's move on to question 5. How can you teach children good time management? How can you teach children good time management? In that question, the examiner wants to know, how can you teach young children to manage their time correctly? How can you teach young children to manage their time correctly? So you can answer that question by saying, you can teach them by helping them to make a timetable, asking them to write all their activities in an agenda, and showing them how to use a timer and an alarm. You can teach them by helping them to make a timetable, asking them to write all their activities in an agenda, and showing them how to use a timer and an alarm. So in that answer, I have identified some ways through which you can teach children good time management. I pointed out that you can help them to make a timetable, for example, of all the subjects that they need to do homework on daily basis. 2, you can ask them to write all their activities in a to-do list. For example, they can write up a to-do list on what they're going to do tomorrow. Maybe they have their lessons and then they're going to do after school activities. So you can help them to write up a to-do list. And you can also show them how to use a timer to time themselves when they're doing certain activities, for example, their homework. And finally, you can teach them how to use an alarm. Okay? Now, this brings me to the next section of our lesson, where I'm going to give you some useful tips to ensure that you pass your IELTS speaking with a very high band. Now, the first tip is to ensure that you understand the question. And how you do that is you read the question and you underline the keywords in each question. As you can see, in all my 5 questions, I have underlined the keyword. Tip number 2, for each question, ensure that you provide 3 to 4 points. And then you can join your ideas together using linking words. For example, in my case, I have used a number of linking words such as but, due to, such as, for instance, okay, and so on. So ensure that for each question you provide 3 to 4 points, join your ideas together using linking words. The next point is ensure that you use a variety of sentence structures in your answers. Use simple, compound, and complex sentences. Now, you notice, for example, my very first answer for question 1 is a complex sentence. It is a complex sentence because, as you can see, I have joined a number of ideas using linking words such as but, due to, and such as. So that is a complex sentence. And then if you look at question 2, sample answer 2, the very first sentence, people give all sorts of excuses to cover up for their lateness. That is a simple sentence. It simply has one verb. So ensure that you use a variety of sentence structures. Use simple, compound, and complex sentences. The next tip, ensure that you use the correct vocabulary for the topic that you're talking about. In this lesson, we are talking about time management. I have used some vocabulary that is relevant to that topic. I have underlined all the vocabulary for you. You can see I have punctual in sample answer 1, on some rare occasions, unavoidable circumstances. In sample answer 2, I have cover up for their lateness, car broke down, bus or train got cancelled. In sample answer 3, I have a to-do list, a timetable, allocated a time slot, an agenda, a reminder, a timer. In sample answer 4, we have mediocre work, confusion, stress. Okay, so for each question, ensure that you're using the correct vocabulary. And this brings me to the last and most important tip of them all, and that is ensure that you speak in correct grammar. If you speak in the correct grammar, that will automatically raise your band. But as soon as you speak broken English in terms of your grammar and your tenses, then automatically you get a very low band. So how do you do that? The very first thing is listen very carefully to the question that the examiner is asking you. In what tense is that question? Okay? In what tense? Because when you're giving your answer, then you need to ensure that you stick to the same tense. Look at question 1, for example. Are you ever late for anything? Now, that question is in the present tense. So my answer is also in the present tense. I try. See the verb try. The next verb is I do get. So get, try. Okay? Those verbs are in the present tense. But also I have mixed that with the past tense. For example, cancelled, if the train is cancelled. Okay? And in the next question, what excuses do people give when they are late? Okay? Now, if you look at the answer I have given, I have used the past tense. Okay, they lie that their car broke down. Okay, that the bus got cancelled. So be very careful with the tense that you use when you're giving your answers. Okay, now this brings me to the last section of our lesson, where I'm going to read the questions out for you, and as I read the questions, think of an answer. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. Question 1. Are you ever late for anything? Question 2. What excuses do people give when they are late? Question 3. How do you organize your time? Question 4. What are the consequences of poor time management? Question 5. How can you teach children good time management? Now, I hope you had no problems answering those questions, but if you had a few problems, do not worry, because you still have the sample answers, so you can practice and adapt the sample answers to your own answers. Now, if you found this lesson helpful, if you learned something new, then please subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share this video on all your social media platforms. Now, thank you very much for your time, and see you in our next lesson. Bye bye.